Hello, and welcome to another episode of Cooking with Colbath. My name is Julie Colbath, and I'm the coordinator of Civic Engagement in the Office of Student Life here at UM-Dearborn. Today, we're going to be making something that's truly like things that I just have around my house, right? I haven't been into the grocery store in a couple weeks, right? And Thanksgiving was a few days ago, so I think it'd be good to have something different. I'm sure y'all have been utilizing your leftovers, hopefully pretty well, reinventing them if you get tired of eating the same thing all the time. So today, I haven't made this recipe before, but it looks really good, and I'm excited because it's not that complicated and doesn't have that many ingredients, right? And it's all stuff that I had at home. So you're going to need a little bit of oil. So I'm just going to be using some olive oil. It calls for chicken thighs, which I don't have, but it says that you can use chicken breasts. So I'm going to be using, I had these in the freezer, these chicken breast tenderloins. So yesterday I pulled them out and put them in the fridge to help thaw them out. And then this morning, they were still a little bit frozen, right? If I would have pulled them out earlier, I wouldn't have had a problem. But then I just put them in cold water. I change the cold water out every 30 minutes, and that helps de-thaw them. So hopefully they will be ready to go. So I'm going to use those instead. But, if you do like chicken thighs and have them at home, please feel free to use those. We'll use a tiny bit of salt and pepper. We're going to use a can of pineapple. It calls for pineapple slices. These are pineapple chunks. I don't think there's really much of a difference, right? Because you would end up cutting up the slices into bite-sized pieces. And then we're going to use some barbecue sauce. You can really use any kind. And I think, right, the person who wrote this recipe was like, oh, it might be cool with a bunch of different kinds of barbecue sauce, right? So maybe try with what you have, and if you really like it, you can try to do something else in the future. And then there's an optional jalapeno. I don't plan to add that. And then there it does say green onions. I'm not planning to add that either. I feel like that's more of a garnish than anything else. I mean, it does like add a little bit of a flavor, don't get me wrong, but I don't have that on hand, so I'm not going to use it. So hopefully this recipe will be fairly quick, which I'm excited about because I'm hungry and I'm ready to eat. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to put some oil in our pan and we're going to heat it. While that happens, we'll season our chicken with just a little bit of salt and pepper, but let me first sort of reposition you. All right, pan, turn the heat on. You can measure out your oil if you want. I normally don't. I just try to, make sure I add enough that the bottom of the pan is like pretty coated. And so I'll move my pan around a little bit to get the oil to move. So we're going to let that heat for a minute, and then while that's happening, I'm just going to season my chicken, right? So like I said, I had de-thawed these tenderloins. Right, it says like 2.3 pounds. If you don't have a kitchen scale, don't really worry about making it accurate, right? So I put a little bit of salt and pepper in this bowl because out of my containers they normally pour out a little bit too quickly. So I'm just going to pinch a little bit and just spread it on my chicken breasts. The thing that I liked about this recipe is it didn't look like it was very complicated. It didn't require any crazy spices, just had stuff that I had on hand. So I'm going to flip them over and season the other side as well. I think in the comments too, which, right, like reviews can always, I don't know. People have different opinions and sometimes reviews don't feel real. But some people use like mango instead of the pineapples. I think some people might have used like mandarin oranges instead. So could be good with a few different fruits. I know right now in the pantry we do have quite a bit of like mandarin oranges. So it might be good with that. I don't know. Since I touched the chicken, well, I need to put it in the pan. So after I put it in the pan, I'll wash my hands. Oh, a spider just fell down. That's fun. Okay, so I'm just going to place these right into my hot oil. Alright. You might be able to hear it. I feel like the sound quality is not always great. But I put them in the pan. It seems as if I did not space them out well. So you want to make sure, I think this will cook relatively quick. You want to make sure you leave a little bit of space in between all of them, right, so that they can cook and they're not all crowded and have a hard time cooking through. So I should be able to flip these in a second to at least be able to move them. One thing to note is I think that you have to broil this for 5 minutes, right? So broiling is just getting your oven like super hot, and most of the time the broiler's on the top. And so ideally, if you have a skillet that can go in the oven, you should use that. If not, you can always transfer it to a different dish that is oven safe. Alright, so I'm just going to try to move these a little bit. They are sticking up a tiny bit, which is fine. Now I'm just going to move them to make space for my other chicken breast. Okay, so those are cooking. And so we're going to cook them until they're golden brown on each side, which I don't think will take very long. So one thing to note, if you are using chicken breasts instead of chicken thighs, and again, I don't really cook with chicken thighs, so I don't know those as well. But it's suggested that sometimes, when you buy the chicken breasts, they're really thick. And so it's suggested pounding the chicken breasts so that they're all sort of a similar thickness, so that they cook more evenly, right? Because there can be variations. These all seem to be like pretty much the same. I didn't feel like, they're pretty small, so I didn't feel like I needed to pound them. But there's, I'm sure, like specific tools for that. But normally when I need to do it, I'll just like grab a pan, I'll put like a paper towel over my meat, and I'll just use a pan and kind of pound it so that it gets a little bit thinner. I'm going to split a couple of these because the white is starting to come up over this like side that's face up, which hopefully means that the bottom is a little bit brown. Got a little bit of oil. One thing that I've been doing recently with cooking with chicken is sometimes instead of leaving them like in the whole breast form, I'll cut them into, more bite-sized pieces. Just because sometimes I feel like it helps it cook quicker. And then I don't have to put as much work in when I'm eating. Not that it's hard to use a fork or a knife to cut into the chicken. But just something to consider. You would do that right if you were making a stir fry or anything like that. One thing, if you don't have a meat thermometer, not a big deal. But if you do, the internal temp of chicken should be 165, I think. So you should always check to see if your chicken is cooked to temperature. We can do that in a few minutes after it seems like the chicken has cooked. So while that's happening, we're going to take our pineapple and I'm going to rinse the top off. We're going to drain it. So drain and reserve the juice from the pineapple slices. So I'm just going to drain it into this liquid measuring cup. So I didn't pull the top off all the way so that I don't have to try to awkwardly strain it while the pineapple's trying to fall out. But you could, if you have a can opener and it's not a pop top, you could easily take it off and then, put it so there's a little bit of a lip left. Get all the juice. Alright, so we'll leave the pineapple chunks there, and we'll leave the juice right here. We'll check back in on our chicken. I'll move the camera so you can kind of see how it's cooking. So I'm going to flip those other ones that I didn't flip before. Alright, so once we're done doing that, we're going to take the chicken and we are going to take it out of the pan. So I'll just put it on a plate in the meantime. Then we're going to turn down the heat and we'll add half of a cup of the pineapple juice. So this ended up being 3/4 of a cup. It can vary each time, right? So there's probably relatively similar amongst cans, but it can be different, right? So we're going to take most of that and we're just going to put it in the skillet to kind of get the brown bits of the chicken that have stuck to the pan, which might not sound the most appetizing, but it'll give it a good flavor. And then we'll add the barbecue sauce and we'll stir until a thick sauce forms, right? It kind of gets all integrated. And then you can season it with a little bit of extra salt if you would like. And right, if your sauce gets too thick, then you can use the rest of the pineapple juice. And then you just add in the chicken and the pineapple, and then you put it in the broiler. So pretty easy. Let's go back to our chicken. All right. So I'm going to try to take the temperature of this chicken now. So this is my meat thermometer. It is not digital. Yep, so 165's got a handy dandy thing on it. Is poultry, so chicken and turkey. So I'm going to grab a fork. And then I'm going to grab one of the pieces that has cooked a little bit longer. And so you want to make sure that when you insert the thermometer, you kind of insert it into what is the thickest part, so you can see, is that actually done cooking. And some thermometers have a little bevel on them, and that's where you need to at least insert the thermometer into, have it at least that thickness, so that's where it kind of senses and reads. So this is almost at 160. So we still have, sorry, I feel like it's probably loud and you might not be able to hear me, but a few more minutes on the chicken. Right, so if I grab another piece, this one, he's pretty thin and he's pretty small. So I'm going to try to get it in there. That one was also about 160. If you don't have a meat thermometer, just make sure you cook it till it's at least not pink. You might need to cut one open and see what color it is inside. So I'm going to try to test one of these ones that I put in a little bit later. I don't know about 140. So hopefully, I think this might be a nice recipe as reminiscent of summer as it snowed yesterday and today. I don't know if I'm ready for winter, but I am ready for soup season. I love soup, so sorry if there end up being lots of soup recipes. I was trying to figure out what to, I think I had already made lentil soup on here before, but we do have lentils in the pantry right now, which I'm excited about. So if you have any lentil recipes that are worthwhile, please share them. I feel like a couple of these have they're very golden brown, so I'm going to take them off. Right, like this guy, look at the nice color. I'm going to let those other ones cook for just a couple more minutes. I mean, they will cook a little bit right when they're under the broiler and in the hot sauce. So we'll just give them a couple more minutes. Again, if there are any cool recipes that you want to share or see us make, please let us know. It's exciting when, we get suggestions. And I'm happy always to try to find a recipe, because I think sometimes, and even when I was looking for recipes yesterday or today, I'm like, oh, this looks good, and so I found a lentil curry that I thought about making, and then it has 15 spices in it, and you're just like, I don't have all of these, nor do I need full containers of them, right? How often do I use this spice? So I'm always happy, right, if you have a concept, to try to find a recipe that, is relatively budget friendly, and some stuff that we might have at the pantry. Always open to suggestions. We will be taking a break over the break. So we should have one more class in 2 weeks, and then we won't have them during the break of the semester. So, all right, these are getting pretty nice and golden. I'm gonna take them off. Silence is so nice. I don't know if y'all could hear it, but it was very loud. So I'm going to show you what the pan looks like right now. You probably won't be able to see it very well. See, but there are lots of brown bits in there, which there's nothing wrong with them. They're actually quite tasty. So we're going to turn the heat down, and we're going to add our half of a cup of pineapple juice. So again, this is more than half a cup, so I'm going to measure out half of a cup. And that's why you turn the heat down, because can you imagine if you didn't? All right. So the point of this is to really loosen these bits that are on the bottom. So I'm just trying to go around with my spatula and make sure they're not stuck anymore. This might not be the best spatula. I love these little spatulas. Don't get me wrong. I love them, especially for cookies and stuff, and most things. But sometimes when I'm trying to, really get something off of a pan, they aren't as effective as some of my other spatulas. All right. Okay, so we've gotten most of the bits off. So we're going to add the barbecue sauce. I had already measured out a half a cup, so this is a half a cup of sauce. I love rubber spatulas because you can really, right? That's almost clean. You can really get everything out of the cup. All right. Add the barbecue sauce and stir until a thick sauce forms. And then I'm not gonna add, well, we can taste it and see. I don't always feel like I know if something, like, sometimes it's obvious, right? If something needs salt, sometimes it's not to me. So I stirred it, and I'll show you. Just looks like barbecue sauce. Well, I guess I already have this fork sitting here, so I'm just gonna taste a little bit. I feel like you might want to add a little bit of salt, right? Because you have this sweetness. Barbecue sauce can be a little bit sweet, and pineapple is obviously sweet, right? So I'm just gonna, well, I'll use my dinosaur. This is salt. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt in there, and then I'll mix it around. All right. I'm gonna turn my oven on broil. So add the cooked chicken thighs or chicken breasts and pineapple slices to the skillet, dredging both sides in the pineapple barbecue sauce. So I'm just gonna touch these with my hand. So I'm gonna, let me move this a little bit. You know, put these in there. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit because it's boiling. So I'm gonna put these in there. And then I'll use my fork to flip them over to make sure they're really coated. Sorry, I feel like I have to hunch to get into the view. I don't know what makes it better or worse. Coated in the barbecue sauce. And I don't know if I'm gonna add the whole can of pineapple or not. So we'll just start putting in some of these tidbits and see what happens. Okay, I feel like that might be enough for me. And then I might freeze the rest to put in smoothies. So, but I'm just gonna, try to get the pineapple coated in the barbecue sauce too. Oop. Okay, so everything is coated. So what we're gonna do next, I need to adjust. I turn it off. I need to adjust my oven rack because it needs to be 6 inches from the broiler. So I need to move my rack up further. So my broiler is at the top of my oven, so I moved it up to the top. And so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put the skillet in the oven and broil it for 5 minutes. Okay, so I set the timer for 5 minutes. Again, make sure you use an oven-safe skillet if you have one. or transfer it to some sort of like, you know, baking dish, like a 9x13 pan or a casserole dish. Anything will work. So what this will do is it'll caramelize the barbecue sauce, which I think will be very tasty. Yeah, in the recipe I was just reading, right, it says, if you don't have an oven-safe skillet, you can transfer the chicken, pineapple, and all of the sauce to the casserole dish for broiling, or skip the broiling step and enjoy as is, right? So you don't necessarily need to do the broil, it'll just add a nice caramelization. So if you do want the sliced jalapeno and or the green onions, you would put them on top after you pull it out of the broiler or right before you're going to serve it. I don't know if she talks about jalapenos at all, right? But be careful with jalapenos, as I'm sure you know, they can be spicy, and a lot of the spice is carried in the seeds. So just be careful if you've touched the seeds to wash your hands really well before you touch your face. It's not fun to get that in your eyes. So just be careful. I think, this will be good with rice. I've been trying to, at the beginning of the week, make a pot of rice that I can use throughout the week, which is helpful, right? So then I only have to, I'm not cooking multiple things right now. I'm just cooking my one dish, and then I'll be done. And I think at the beginning of this recipe, right, if you were actually to look at the post online, it had suggested, maybe serving it with a side of broccoli or something, so feel free to add anything as you see fit. I am curious. I'm going to turn the light on in my oven because I feel like my pan could be a little bit closer, so I'm just going to look inside. Ooh. I'm going to pull it out real quick just to look at it. I'm going to leave it in there just for the couple more minutes that it should be. Something to note, as I've done before and have probably mentioned, make sure you use hot pads when you're pulling it out. I mean, that's obvious, right? But sometimes afterwards, I forget, like I've set it back on the stove, and then I forget that it was just in the oven, right? Because it's not often that I put my hands directly in the oven. And then I'll like touch the handle to move it and then get burned. So be careful. Sometimes I know that I have I wonder if it's in here. For my cast iron skillet, I think I have sort of one of these silicone style things that go on the end of the skillet on the handle, right? So it's not as hot when you pick it up. But I know, right, winter is coming, which is a whole exciting thing for me for food. Because it offers I don't know, I'm looking for more comforting food, and I don't mind having my oven on like I do in the summertime. So it offers a lot more opportunity of casseroles and stuff like that. So if you ever, you're like, oh, this sounds good, and you don't necessarily we might not always have to make it on the show, right? But if you are interested in a recipe, it's always nice when you can talk, other people have sort of vetted a recipe or tried it before, because sometimes I made something last week and it had a bunch of great reviews on it, 5 stars. I ate it and I was like, this has no flavor. Hold on, I'm gonna take it out. So I think, right, sometimes I'm always a little bit leery of some recipes. So it's always nice, right? So if you ever are like, oh, I really want a recipe for this, like utilizing these items that I found in the pantry, please let us know. You can reach out to the Office of Student Life at engagement@umich.edu, or you can reach out to the pantry at UM-Dearborn Pantry at umich.edu. Just as a reminder too, the pantry is still open by appointment only, so it's kind of like curbside pickup. So you make an appointment and then you fill out an order form. We'll pack your bag for you, and then you drive up, meet us at the door of the University Center, and we'll do an exchange. We will be closed during the break between semesters, so please make sure you plan ahead, right? If you need food to, come into one of our last appointments to kind of lessen the amount of time that you'll have between appointments. So this actually looks really good. So I'm going to show you. I'm not sure how well it'll turn out on my camera. Right, so it gave, under the broiler, it gave some of the chicken like a nice, seemingly like crispiness. I don't want to say like, it got a little bit charred, which is, a good thing, right? That happens on the grill all the time. So I'm excited to eat it. I'll let you know how it is. I'm planning to serve it over rice, but you could easily, eat it on its own, serve it with like quinoa or some other sort of grain. I think that'll be nice to like soak up the barbecue sauce. If you make this, please let me know what you thought about it, if you would make any edits, any changes, and I'll let you know what I think about it. But thank you so much for joining, and we'll plan to see you in 2 weeks.